Pandora makes it easy for you to find your favorite music. Discover new artists and genres by selecting any song or album, and we'll make you a personalized station for free. Download on the Apple App Store or Google Play and enjoy the soundtrack to your life.
Have you experienced serious complications with the Paragard IUD, like breakage or fracture? You're not alone. Keller Postman is here to help. Tap the banner now for a free case review. We're helping women hold manufacturers accountable. If eligible, you may be entitled to compensation of up to $200,000. Don't wait. Tap now or visit iudinjury.com/audio to see if you qualify. Your health matters, and justice is within reach. Tap the banner or visit iudinjury.com/audio to get started today. This is attorney advertising.
Welcome to True Crime Garage. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, thanks for listening. I'm your host, Nick, and with me, as always, is a man who would like to know, do you want to get understood? Here is the captain.
Nobody is understood, especially not the captain. It's good to be seen and good to see you. Thanks for listening. Thanks for telling a friend.
Today, it is extra cold. I hope it's warm wherever you are listening. But for us here in the garage, it is extra cold. But thankfully, we have some extra stout to consume. This is Eye Wide Open by the crew at Third Eye Brewing Company. It's like your favorite dessert coffee, but add 6.3% alcohol by volume. It's a delicious coffee and vanilla milk stout with lactose. Garage grade 4 and 3/4 bottle caps out of 5. And let's give some thanks and praise to our good garage friends, both near and far. First up, we have a long distance cheers that goes out to Josh from Exeter, England.
And a big we like to jib goes out to Stacy from Fort Lickerdale, Florida.
Next up, double fisted cheers to Jack and Leah from Boston.
And a big shout out to Sherry from the Colony in Texas.
Next up, we have a cheers to David from Worcester, Massachusetts. And last but certainly not least, we have Caroline Bryan from Benicia, California. Everyone we just mentioned, they went to truecrimegarage.com, clicked on the pint glass, and helped us out with this week's beer fund to fill up the old garage fridge. And for that, we say thank you.
Yeah, BWRUN Beer Run. We have many items that are for sale at Podswag. So just go to podswag.com. We have so many items there, but we have many items that are for sale right now. So go to podswag.com and check those out. And Colonel, that's enough of the business.
My favorite is the solo cup. Gather around, grab a chair, grab a beer. Let's talk some true crime. When we left off on part 1, we were right in the thick of it. We were on Super Bowl Sunday, digging through Super Bowl weekend. We were on January 31st. This is the day that most people believe that David Glenn Lewis went missing. The teams playing on that Super Bowl would be the Buffalo Bills and the Dallas Cowboys. I do want to point out, too, that they were playing in Pasadena, California. It is said that David was a big Cowboys fan. Now, one thing that we know to be true is that someone, most people speculate that it was David that did this.
Yeah.
But somebody recorded the Super Bowl using the Lewis's family VCR. To carry out this detail a little bit further, it is often reported that this VCR did not have the timer function, which would mean somebody had to hit the record button to record the Super Bowl. So I think we need to give a little further explanation here, because we will have a small percentage of those listening that may not know exactly how a VCR works. So
What's a VCR?
What is VCR?
Video cassette recorder.
There you go. And most of the time people used it simply just to watch movies. You would use it mainly for watching. Some people would record a lot of stuff. Now, I was one of those weirdo kids that I recorded sporting events. I know that not a lot of people record sporting events, but I would record a sporting event and then watch it again. I never used the timer function simply because I don't know that I knew how to work it.
Most people didn't know how to use that damn thing.
So yeah, the VCRs would brag. Like when you would go to buy one at the store, you would pick this one because it had the timer function and not that one because it did not. Because you could put a video cassette into the VCR, set up the timer function, and even if you were out to dinner or you were at work or whatever, the idea is that at that time on that specific channel, it would start recording. Now, today we have wonderful technology, things like we can just stream a show that we like. We don't have to record it. Or some people do a DVR type of feature where they just tell it, hey, I want it to record this particular show whenever it's on. And it just magically does it for you. Well, back then, no, you either had to physically hit the record button, put in a blank tape or tape over something and physically hit the button, or for the 1% that knew how to use the timer function. I don't know that I've ever met anybody that knew how to use the timer function.
Yeah, but David wasn't a dumb guy. David seems to me like if his VCR had a timer function, that this dude would know how to use it.
So the reports are that he did not, that this VCR did not, and somebody put a tape into the VCR and started recording the Super Bowl around 5:15 p.m. I find it very interesting that this detail, I want to say here that I don't know that we've been able to double, triple, quadruple check this 5:15 p.m. Because if you look up the start of the Super Bowl for his time zone, it would have been starting at 5 o'clock. Now, if in fact somebody did hit the record button at 5:15, that suggested to me that somebody actually hit record rather than using the timer function. Because wouldn't you just set the timer for 5 o'clock when the TV guide says the Super Bowl's coming on? That way you don't miss a second of it. We know there's going to be talk and lead up and build up.
Yeah, but how long was the tape?
Yeah, that's a good question. I didn't think that
Look,
far
this
ahead.
is one of those things. There's so many missing person cases that have these 1 or 2 points of information that I think could be incorrect. Like take the Brian Schaefer story. Oh, he's seen on video footage going into a bar, but he's never seen leaving the bar. How did he get out? Well, there was a bunch of blank spaces in the building that weren't surveillance by video footage.
Yeah.
There was exit doors, 3 of them right by the exit of the bar.
A couple that you and I've walked through ourselves.
Yes, the exit of the bar was not technically on video footage. So to me, this is one of those details. Chances are this VCR had a timer function and David set it up. That doesn't mean that the story is less interesting.
No.
I think we need to, because we can't confirm it. We just need to put it in the realm of possibilities that David set this up himself. Because also, if you were there and you were going to watch the Super Bowl, why would you need to record it anyways?
Well, that's why I brought up my own personal habits from time to time when I was a kid. When I thought something was a major sporting event for me, something that I was really interested in watching, I would tape it in because I would know that I would want to go back and watch it.
Yeah.
But I'm with you. That was my first thought. I'm like, most people don't record sporting events because they're watching them live. And it would make sense that if you did not possess the ability to watch it in action, live action, that you would tape it. But I did want to point out there are some weirdos, yours truly included, that at occasions in my life would tape the sporting event that I was watching live.
Yes, but let me reiterate. We have no confirmed sightings of David after Thursday. This is Sunday.
Correct.
It's bizarre.
Correct. The closest thing we have to an actual sighting of David Glenn Lewis would be on Friday the 29th, where a friend from church says that she believes that she saw David rushing through the airport. That is slightly different than the activities on Thursday where it's David at work. It's David teaching his class. Those things we know David did for sure. It's not one person saying, I think I saw David doing this at this time on this date. Now, wife and daughter get home. The stories that I've been able to find, none of them state what time the wife and daughter get home. I couldn't find a single one that gives me an hour time frame. We got home in the morning. We got home in the early afternoon. We didn't get home till 10 p.m. at night.
Well, we could assume it was after 5:15.
That's why I included that in this portion to make sure that we included that, because it sounds like, based off of what his wife says, that she returns. And again, a couple conflicting stories. One report says that she wasn't triggered by coming home and not finding her husband there, that she assumed he was working late. The guy worked a lot. We know he had 2 jobs, and she made an assumption that she was working late. There are several other versions of the same story that says she came home and thought, well, he probably went to a friend's home or a friend's house or went out with a friend to watch the game, and he was going to be home late. And in those versions of the story, she states it said that she went to bed, assumed he would come home sometime after she fell asleep. And when she woke up in the morning, he's not there. Now she's concerned, probably angry. But it wasn't until she was made aware that he had missed 2 work-related appointments on that Monday that when she called police and said, hey, this is on Monday, February 1st. My husband is missing. So now we've notified the police that he is missing.
Yeah.
The other details about Sunday that are strange as well is she says that she found 2 turkey sandwiches prepared, and most of the versions of the story say fresh turkey sandwiches, so they look like they were recently prepared, but they were left inside of the family's refrigerator. Another detail is that his watch, David's watch, and David's wedding ring were found on a bench located in the kitchen. The other reports state that they were simply found somewhere in the home. I don't know when these items were found, but they were found. They were located. Now, if I'm a husband or I'm a wife and I come home and it's
You're
Sunday,
both at the same time.
Sunday evening,
Mm-hmm.
I'm like Whitney Houston. I'm every woman. If I come home Sunday evening and I find my spouse not there in their wedding ring on, just like sitting on a countertop or something. Now, everybody's different. There are a lot of men out there that don't like to wear rings. There are even some women that for some reason will not, one reason or another, not wear a wedding ring or not wear it at certain times.
Right.
Right. Like I wear mine, but if I'm working in the yard or if I'm doing something that's physical, if I'm at the gym, that thing's not on me. It just drives me nuts. So unless he was one of these cats that didn't usually wear it or usually would take it off for any number of reasons, that may not have raised any red flags for her, but it might for other people. So I question when these 2 items were found.
Well, if you're Whitney Houston, then let me be Kevin Costner and I'll be your bodyguard, because to me, this isn't a red flag. And the reason why is he has his watch and his wedding ring, and it's on a bench in the kitchen. And why would you take off your wedding ring and your watch if you're doing the dishes? And why would you need to do the dishes? Because your wife is coming home that night and you want to make sure that the dishes are done before she gets home. So this is why it's not a red flag to me.
Or you're making a turkey sandwich and don't want to get turkey on your wedding ring.
Right.
Really, we
don't
can
want to get that meat juice on that.
We can
wedding ring.
overanalyze this, but as the story goes, this is the detail that's included.
No, but what I'm saying is it's not that odd. It's found in the kitchen, just like it wouldn't be that big of a red flag if you found it in the bathroom, meaning he took it off to take a shower. I'm just saying it's kind of suggestive of why he would take it off in that room. It's not like she found the watch and the wedding ring on the front doorstep or in the mailbox or somewhere strange.
Right, I get that. What I'm trying to point out is each is their own. Everybody's different. It may be a red flag for her and not for you or I. What I'm saying here is what is missing from the detail that I think is intriguing is when were these items discovered? If she comes home and finds wedding ring on the countertop or the kitchen bench and it doesn't mean anything to her, then it's nothing at all.
Right.
But there, as said, there, according to the story and all of the reports, she comes home, he's not there. She does not call police that night. She's not alarmed at the time. She says maybe he's working late or maybe he's with a friend or friends watching the Super Bowl. It's not until she knows that he missed 2 work-related appointments that the alarm is raised. So for everybody in every different situation, there are different things that will cause a person to notify the authorities and other things that they'll simply shrug off in the moment.
Totally agree. And I think the fact that because he worked so much and had 2 jobs, there's a good chance that he woke up and left the house multiple times before she even woke up. So not that crazy that she didn't call police when she woke up and he wasn't there. But you miss a couple of appointments, work appointments, that's not something he does. But then my question is, so we know that he had a class on Thursday, late class, but what was his work schedule supposed to be on that Friday? Because you'd think it would be brought to people's attention if he wasn't at work all Friday.
Exactly. The strange thing here, well, I keep saying that, but how many times can you repeat that? But think about it. Let's try to go back to 1993. There's so many great things about texting, right? It's so easy to just quickly text somebody and get a quick response and a quick answer to your question. 1993, that's not the world that we were living in back then.
Yeah.
And my thought here is when we say miss 2 work-related appointments, is it as simple as one of those appointments? We're making an assumption that both of those appointments were that Monday. And as you pointed out, we don't have anybody saying that he went to work on Friday. Now, speaking of assumptions, is that just simply because he left work that job early on Thursday saying he didn't feel well, went home at noon, and they just said, well, David wasn't feeling well yesterday. I hope he's okay. He went home early. Maybe we give a call and see if he's all right, or maybe we don't want to wake him. We don't have any information about why he wasn't at work on that Friday. I'm with you. I think that whatever was going on in David's world, whether he was in charge of it or not, the mystery really begins and doesn't start until after 10 p.m. that Thursday night. Right. Everything Friday is up for debate. Everything Saturday and Sunday up for debate.
Yeah.
And speaking of that, we have 2 more things that are up for debate, and they just don't align with any of the other movements or things that we know to be true, right? Because at this point, beyond all those days that we just mentioned up for debate, once we get to Monday, February 1st, we know a few things to be absolutely true. A, he's not there when his wife wakes up, never comes home that day. Right. B, he did not go to work on Monday, February 1st. And C, he ends up dead wearing army fatigues and work boots in the middle of State Route 24, 1,600 miles away in Moxie, Washington.
Makes no sense.
None. So when did he truly go missing, if that's the case? How did he get from point A to point B, which is so far away? And then there's these details as well. On February 2nd, the next day, okay, so the flag has been raised. Police are looking for, or at least have received, a missing persons report of this adult male, David Glenn Lewis, who is a professional. He's a father. He's a smart guy. He's an athletic guy. He doesn't live one of these transient type lifestyles or a high risk lifestyle where they're just like, oh yeah, he's probably out partying with friends or shooting up under an overpass. They don't do that.
Under an airplane.
Yeah. Or under an airplane. So on February 2nd, they find his red Ford Explorer outside of the Potter County Courts building. So this would be the same spot or same location, general location as where it had been suspected of being seen prior and then not seen prior as well. And so, but we do know that they find his actual vehicle. And then to make things even more strange, it's reported that inside of this vehicle, they find his keys, the keys to that Ford Explorer underneath a floor mat. They also find his checkbook, credit card, driver's license. These are all found in the car. Now, I wanted to include the Reddit post because the Reddit post, again, great for speculation. We have to take it with a grain of salt that some of these statements are fact, which we would do with the newspaper as well, because we've reviewed cases and reviewed multiple newspapers and things are reported slightly different. Major details, no, but minor details, yes. According to the Reddit post, shout out to Honey Bertram, it was customary for David to keep these items in his vehicle. I think what I'm trying to point out here, if in fact that's true, it is customary, so it's not so crazy to find these items in his vehicle because he would customarily keep them there. It's only strange because we don't know where the hell David is. And you would think some of these items would be on him or on his person. This, from my understanding, this is about a 12 to 14 minute drive from the airport. So if in fact both of those earlier statements are true, that his vehicle was parked at this same location in front of the courthouse, and a man believed to be David was at the airport roughly at the same time running through the terminal on that Friday, how did he pull that off? Here's an idea, because this is a report that we get from the local police. Amarillo police say that they spoke to a cab driver who told them that he believed that he drove someone who he thought appeared to possibly be David Lewis, and it was a passenger in his cab. He says that he drove the man matching Lewis's description from a hotel to a Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport on Monday, February 1st. He says the passenger seemed nervous and fumbled through a wad of $100 bills to pay the fare. That's why he remembered this particular passenger. Keep in mind, we've already went through some of the distances here. If in fact this report, this is the one that comes from the newspaper, is true, that he drove this gentleman from the hotel to the Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport, that's a 5-hour drive. You can fly from Amarillo to Dallas, which makes our story even more strange.
Hiring quickly is a common struggle for employers, especially with the time it takes to sift through resumes and find the right candidates. If that's a challenge you're facing, ZipRecruiter is the solution you need. ZipRecruiter is a hiring site employers prefer the most, based on G2. Their advanced matching technology quickly connects you with top talent, saving you both time and money. In fact, most employers who post on ZipRecruiter find a quality candidate within the first day. Plus, you get ZipRecruiter's pre-written invite to apply message to personally reach out to candidates who would be perfect for your job. So relax, employers, and let ZipRecruiter speed up your hiring. See for yourself. Just go to ZipRecruiter.com/garage right now to try it for free. That's the same price as a genuine smile from a stranger, a picture-perfect sunset, or a cute dog running up to you and licking your hand. Again, that's ZipRecruiter.com/garage. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire.
Make this new year a milestone in your child's education with IXL. IXL uses advanced algorithms to personalize your child's learning experience, ensuring they receive the right support at the right time. With subjects spanning from counting and ABCs to advanced high school topics like calculus and SAT prep, one subscription covers all your child's educational needs and saves you time by providing organized resources all in one place. Friends of mine used IXL for summertime learning, and during the school year, they used IXL to improve their child's mathematics skills and reading skills. And not only is the child's skills improving, they're enjoying the experience as well. Make an impact on your child's learning. Get IXL now. And True Crime Garage listeners can get an exclusive 20% off an IXL membership when they sign up today at IXL.com/garage. Visit IXL.com/garage to get the most effective learning program out there at the best price.
This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. What do you want your 2025 story to be? I would like to be a better version of myself. I'd like to stop comparing myself to others. I'd like to focus on what I can control. Every January brings you 365 blank pages waiting to be filled. In 2025, maybe you're ready for a plot twist. Maybe there's a part of your story you've been wanting to revise. Life isn't about resolutions that fade by February. It's about picking up the pen and becoming the author of your own life. Think of therapy as your editorial partner, helping you write new chapters and create the meaningful story you deserve to live. BetterHelp is fully online, making therapy affordable and convenient, serving over 5 million people worldwide. I'm one of those 5 million people. Access a diverse network of more than 30,000 credentialed therapists with a wide range of specialties, and easily switch therapists anytime at no extra cost. Write your own story with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/garage to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/garage. This show is proudly sponsored by BetterHelp. Well, it's officially too cold to do anything. The upside, you can cocoon yourself in a soft and cozy Bombas socks, slippers, and underwear all winter long. The secret is in their fabrics. We're talking about the good stuff, like merino wool, which feels as cozy as a ski lodge. But if you want to brave the cold on the slopes or on a snowy run, Bombas has athletic socks built for that too. It doesn't matter which Bombas you get because every Bombas item gives back. For every item you purchase, Bombas will donate another item to somebody facing homelessness. This is why we love Bombas. I get to treat myself and also treat somebody else in the process. It's a win-win. I've been telling you for years, Bombas has the best socks, period. But now I'm proud to say that Bombas has the best slippers I have ever owned. So why not this winter feel nice and cozy? Treat yourself. So try Bombas now. Head over to bombas.com/garage and use code GARAGE to get 20% off your first purchase. That's BOMBAS.com/garage. Code GARAGE at checkout. Treat yourself with Bombas. All right, we are back.
Cheers.
Cheers to the people in the front.
Ooh, people up front getting a little attention.
Yeah, get a little love up front.
Close enough for a high five.
Yeah, or a low five.
Lots of low fives. So
depends on how you see the world.
2 plane tickets were found to have been purchased in David's name. Reports are one was purchased on the 31st of January. So this would be a flight from Dallas to Amarillo. The second was purchased on February 1st, but was a flight from Los Angeles to Dallas. The report I have here, so I did verify that this is true, that you could have a LA to Dallas flight and a layover in Amarillo, and you could have a layover in Amarillo on the reverse of that, Dallas to Los Angeles. So I wanted to verify that can be a regular stop, because the information that I found about these particular plane tickets, someone went out of their way saying that the plane ticket that was purchased on February 1st from Los Angeles to Dallas did contain a layover or a stop in Amarillo, which would be crazy smart if you were trying to throw someone off of your trail and you wanted to get back home, even just briefly for some reason.
Right.
Buy a ticket from LA to Dallas, and hopefully you send the scent to Dallas and they go chasing you in Dallas while you just take the layover and go home. You don't continue on to Dallas.
Right.
The thing that complicates this, so a lot of our listeners are probably going, oh, well, this is something really big here. And it could be something very big here. These could be the actions of David Lewis. But keep in mind, it was 1993. You didn't need a passport or an ID to purchase plane tickets. So we can't sit here and say with a great deal of certainty that it was in fact David Lewis who purchased these tickets. Could it have been somebody else that wants us to think that he wanted to travel to these locations?
I want to let the listeners know how much I appreciate them listening to us, especially this week, because basically what we're telling you,
we know nothing.
Here's a bunch of details, and we know shit about shit. Because, okay, congratulations. Okay, he could go from LA to Dallas, and but how the hell does he get to Washington? And was there a flight from wherever he was at to Washington? And we have no record of it being purchased in his name. Was he ever known to go by a different name?
Was his middle name used for the purchase of these particular plane tickets? Because another Reddit poster had a brilliant thought saying that with the name David Lewis being a
common name,
somewhat common name, and Texas being so large with so many people, and I don't know that this was substantiated, but the thought was, could these tickets have been issued to a different David Lewis that has nothing to do with, Dallas is a huge city. Los Angeles is a huge city. Could these be other David Lewises? And then to further the mystery even more, there are some reports out there that state that these two tickets that we just discussed, Dallas to Amarillo, Los Angeles to Dallas, were never used. There are other reports that I think are probably more accurate that says that it is unknown,
right,
if these tickets were used or if David actually used these tickets.
So we don't know shit about shit, but there's so many other people in this case that don't know shit about shit.
Well, I do know something about this case for certain. Other than the few certainties we've already went over, I got one more for you.
Okay.
The Dallas Cowboys won that Super Bowl. Spoiler alert.
Bingo, boingo.
We know that to be true. All right, let's go through this newspaper article because there's some more good background information. We do know that from day one, Mrs. Lewis said her husband received death threats when he served as the Moore County Court at Law judge in Dumas. This is from 1986 to 1990, so 3 years prior to his death. She points out that maybe he made an enemy at his current law practice. And she pointed to two particular cases, saying that her husband may have made some enemies. One was a lawsuit brought by a convicted murderer, Bobby Templin, who was suing his former father-in-law, Norbert Schlegel of Shamrock, Texas. Now, one thing I found interesting about this, so we talk about this time to time here in the garage. This is a convicted murderer. So the state of Texas believes that Bobby Templin has killed someone. So he does separate himself from some other unknowns in this, just knowing the fact that he is capable of carrying out a murder. However, that lawsuit was dropped. The other part of it is Norbert, who was the one being sued, Norbert told the police and told the newspaper that he doesn't think that Templin was good for this because Templin was still locked up at the time. And he's saying, look, that guy doesn't possess the money, the power, the control, the resources to influence or arrange a murder from prison. We can't guarantee that, but it seems to reason to me when we have a central figure in that situation saying that this is a non-starter here.
Right.
The other case that Lewis's wife pointed to was a $3 million lawsuit brought against Lewis, several other lawyers, and a engine additive promoter that Lewis represented. Lewis was the only key party awaiting deposition, meaning he was going to go be deposed under oath to give statements and answer questions, comfortable or otherwise, and he was the last person in line to do so with this $3 million lawsuit. He never makes it to this deposition because he ends up in Moxie, Washington.
Which is a possibility, I guess.
Well, I think, yes, I think there's a lot of possibilities here. But when we speak of possibilities, everything I could find, Captain, and this all goes to back when he was still missing, right? Nobody's sorted out yet that he ended up in the state of Washington. But the police all seem to think, or at least the ones that spoke to the newspapers about the case, sounds to me like they all lean toward suicide. Again, he's still missing at this time. His wife is always saying that she believed that foul play was involved, that somebody did something to her husband. What was interesting to me is some people point to Mrs. Lewis's refusal to take a polygraph test as maybe that she had some kind of involvement in whatever happened to her husband. I want to say this. That is certainly a possibility. We talked about possibilities. There's a lot of possibilities here. Did she have a hand in this? Could be. I don't think so. My gut tells me no. What I would like to know is, when was she requested to take this polygraph test? Was it when he was still missing? Was it 10 years later when they knew that he was dead?
Yeah.
And the other thing that I would like to point out, and I know that this doesn't mean that a person is innocent, but I always find this to be intriguing. If she had a hand in this and wanted the investigation to just kind of go away and wanted the police to just kind of leave her alone, if the police are telling her, hey, we hate to tell you this, but it's very confusing. Your husband's movements are believed to be movements. We think maybe he may have taken his own life.
Yeah, one would think that she would follow that up with, he was very depressed.
Yeah.
Hated his life, hated his job, hated me, hated his daughter.
And
it's a good possibility he killed himself.
She doesn't say that. She tells the police, no, I think that somebody did something to my husband. Keep looking. And in fact, she tells the newspapers the same thing. Like, I'm really concerned. He had death threats.
Yeah.
And I think that somebody killed my husband. So she could have made that easier on herself had she had something to hide. And I kind of wonder if you have this situation where you already have kind of tension, right? Like, she probably doesn't like what the police are telling her. Like, you think he killed himself? I'm telling you, no, he wouldn't have done that. Then why would you sit down and take a polygraph examination with people that you already have friction with? So if in fact she did refuse a polygraph examination, I can see reasons why.
Yeah. And guess what his job was? He was a lawyer. So guess who she knows? Other lawyers.
Yeah.
Maybe she just simply reached out to one of David Lewis's friends and said, hey, the cops want me to take a polygraph test. And the lawyer said, yeah, don't do that. I advise you against that. But again, I'm with you. You don't, when everybody's pointing towards suicide, if you were the one responsible for the foul play, you wouldn't be the only one pointing towards foul play.
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't make a lot of sense. Not saying that it's impossible, but this case bothers me because I can't even tell you when he went missing.
Right.
I think it's sometime Friday. I want to believe the person from the church that saw him at the airport, but then my question is, well, where did he fly to?
Right. Because we really have no leads on that. And as we stated,
We have all these missing pieces of the puzzle. The thing we do have, like you were saying, this deposit, this weird deposit that nobody knows who made the deposit. Well, what about the withdrawals? We have some gas purchases, but those all kind of make sense. But these airplane tickets, we don't know if those are for David Glenn Lewis or not.
exactly. And it's baffling to me. Here's the thing that really hinders a lot of this true investigation, right? Because the police obviously in Amarillo don't know that the guy they're looking for is 1,600 miles away.
Right.
And the collision death, the vehicular homicide case, the hit and run case up in Moxie, well, they're looking into it, but the biggest hurdle speed bump that they got at right out the gate is they can't identify the victim. And by the time that he is identified, look how much time has passed. This story, we chose to start it off with the detective that finally identified
The victim.
the guy, David Lewis, who was the guy on State Route 24 in Washington State. And why and how, what led him to thinking outside of the box, to putting a name to this John Doe, a real name, was him reading articles about the failures of big city law enforcement agencies in connecting the dots between missings and unidentified persons, and the problems with missing persons and missing adults being low priority cases in a lot of jurisdictions. What kind of investigation took place when this adult male, 39 years old, was missing in Amarillo? Regardless of any of those details, even if we had more information on that front, let's go back to the airports. So much talk of airports here in this case.
Yeah.
Here's what I'm confused about too. Not just how did he get from Amarillo to Moxie, how did he get from anywhere to Moxie? It's not anywhere near any major airport. So even if he flew to a location much closer, he still had to get from that airport if you could prove.
Right.
If you could prove when he left, then at some point you have to say, well, if he left, if he went missing, or if he departed Amarillo at time X, let's just put it, X time. We already talked about the driving time. We talked about the flying time that it would take to get from where he lived to where he was found. You can immediately start to go, well, he didn't teleport there. So
not that we know of. We can't prove it.
He had to go missing way before they think he did. Right? He's not hitting record on that VCR at 5:15 p.m. on Sunday and then just a couple of hours later being struck by a car. I don't care even if he flew. He's not, unless he hopped on a tiny little plane and flew out somebody's backyard and landed this prop plane in a field somewhere near Moxie. I mean, you're talking about flight time alone. He physically couldn't have pushed play. He couldn't push record on that VCR. Heck, the driving time from the nearest major airport to where he's found, he couldn't have pressed play on that VCR. Whether he walked away, disappeared, somebody snatched him, took him away, it happened well before 5:15 Sunday evening.
Yeah, if I'm law enforcement, I'm looking at this and going, we have no confirmation of any sightings of him. If I lean towards one, maybe the airport, but that still puts his last known whereabouts Friday. So that gives him enough time to get where he was hit. But how did he get there? And is it possible, again, because this is the early 90s, is it possible that he rented a car with cash? Or not, maybe not even rent a car, but maybe a taxi? We have this eyewitness report of this taxi driver claiming that he gave a ride to somebody that looked like David. And so then is he running away from somebody, or did somebody
something.
or was he trying to run away and somebody got him? And they're the ones that took him to Washington. Because what are the odds that this guy ends up 1,600 miles away from home, gets hit by a car, and then we're just going to assume he's hit by just an innocent person? Most people that are good people, most people that are just innocent people, if they hit somebody while driving, they would stop. So to me, this person that hit him, it's more likely that he was either trying to run from somebody. Maybe this was his chance to get away. Maybe he was trapped in a van, #ban the van. And in that process of trying to escape, he is hit by the vehicle.
Chased down by the vehicle. When I first reviewed this case, that was my thought as well. And I'm if you allow me, I'm going to talk out of both sides of my face here for a second. But on one hand, you say, yes, you're right. Most people would stop. We should say this, most innocent people would stop. Now, the person that hit in the vehicle that struck David Lewis, the person may be innocent of not wanting to run somebody over or to hit them with their vehicle, but may be guilty of something else. They could be drinking and driving, could have something in the car they don't want to get caught with.
Right.
It's not my fault that man was in the middle of the road. Yeah, I wish I wouldn't have hit him, but maybe it is my fault because I had 8 beers while I was watching the Super Bowl with my buddy and chose to drive home. So there are extenuating circumstances to that. But yes, my first initial thought when I reviewed this, I'm like, he was probably only where he was because he had the opportunity to break free and flee from his captors.
Right.
The problem with him just kind of, here's the other thing. I've said to a couple of smart people that I've reviewed this case with, and I said, look, am I way out of bounds here to think that maybe this guy just completely lost his mind? And both individuals told me, no, that should be in consideration because the movements, if he did in fact make all of these movements and put these things into place, they make no sense to anybody other than to David, not even to his wife, not to police, not to detectives in Washington, not to detectives in Amarillo. But the problem with that is still, how the hell did he end up on State Route 24 in Moxie, Washington, if he lost his mind? And like there would have had to be a vehicle or something nearby. I mean, unless we don't have anybody coming forward that says, look, you found that guy dead? Oh yeah. I gave a ride there was this dude hitchhiking and he was wearing army fatigues. I picked him up and we made our way down State Route 24. We made our way for 2 hours drive time. And he said, hey, just drop me off here. And I did. Again, that's the problem with this investigation is simply the passage of time. There were not hardly any news reports out there that would stretch beyond this local area saying, hey, we found this guy in the road and we don't know who he is. And here's a description of him. David Lewis isn't identified for 10 or so years. If somebody did give him a ride, just being friendly, right? Just helping a person out. Yeah, sure, I'll give you a ride from the Seattle airport to X location. That person may have passed away, moved away, forgotten all about it after the passage of time. Again, the story didn't spread wide until he was identified.
Does it bother you as much as it bothers me that he's found and clothes that his wife is saying those aren't his clothes?
Yeah, it does.
It's not something he'd wear.
I was a little thrown off because I had found some early reports that seemed to be very accurate that state that the only thing that she reported missing along with her husband was I think she said a pair of green sweatpants or maybe a green sweatshirt. And so then part of me had wondered, well, with this unidentified that they found in Washington, was it just misinterpreted? Was it the guy wearing a green sweatsuit and they described it in the report as camouflage fatigues? Well, a lot of cases we've reviewed, especially ones that drag on, and again, the newspaper back then was pointing out that these are low priority cases for large jurisdictions, and maybe it felt that way too for small jurisdictions. But if they are low priority, that means that you're not holding on to a big box of evidence for an unidentified person for decade after decade after decade. So I had wondered, maybe did they just, because a lot of the reports I had reviewed said that Pat Ditter, the detective, reviewed the inventory list from that case. And so I thought, well, maybe they just wrote down, they described them as fatigues and they were just a green sweatsuit, or they had nothing for the wife to look at and say, what did this belong to your husband? But I was able to dig up some reports that seemed to be very credible and accurate. That sounds like they did keep the clothing that was found on the John Doe,
Well, I used to have a green sweater that was actually an Army grade sweater, which I don't think most people would have known. I bought it at the Army surplus store. So is it something like that can confuse the whole situation? I'm going to throw something out there to you, and I just want to see if you think if I've lost my marbles. Two things. Every case that we cover, there's points of the case that will remind us about other cases, just like that little piece of evidence on the VCR. Was he at home? That doesn't make any sense to me, because it doesn't make sense, and because he didn't teleport, he wasn't at home. Was somebody else at home then to cover this up? Maybe. Or maybe VCR had a timer on it. Who knows? So it reminds you of the Schaefer case a little bit, but then it also kind of reminds me of the Outer End case, where the victim is found shot off the freeway. Now that victim is found, but there's a car nearby, but he is found basically dressed like a ninja. So it reminds me of that. And then you go, well, why is he in the middle of nowhere dressed as a ninja? Maybe he is not such an innocent victim. So then you go, well, what was David Glenn Lewis doing? Was he out there for a nefarious reason? And maybe I shut you out, but how far away was he from the nearest city? Is this a place that he, as long as he got to that city, he could have walked to this area? Was it a mile away or 2 miles away?
Well, define city though, because
just even a small city.
Well, I mean, he was found in Moxie, which is it's a town. So in some states, you have to have a population, I believe, of like 10,000 people before you're thought to be a city rather than a town. I can't say what it is for Washington. I have no idea, but it's referred to as the town of Moxie. Yakima would be the nearest city, let's call it. I would say you're probably less than a 15, 20-minute drive. You haven't lost your marbles. This case will make anybody lose their marbles. But
well, I have lost my marbles.
The best thing I had come up with was it simply something very strange where he was trying to fake his own death and ended up accidentally getting killed in the process.
That is a very real possibility.
The problem is, how did he get to where he was found with there being no abandoned vehicle that we know of? And how well did they search for that? I mean, it seems to me that somebody got him to the general location where he was found, whether it be innocently just helping somebody out, whether they had abducted him and they were transporting him somewhere, or, I mean, look, if he was just simply going to commit suicide, he could have done it in Dallas. If he wanted to disappear, he could have disappeared in Dallas.
Yeah.
But it's
there's some weird connection to this area that we just don't know about.
If in fact David took those pictures of his vehicle, if in fact he chose to leave his driver's license, what I'm saying is if all of those actions were David's actions, it leads me to one of two things. Either he was trying to fake his own death so he could go off and live another life, and maybe his wife and child receive some benefits for his death. And he,
Right.
being an attorney, would know that him simply disappearing may not guarantee wife and child any benefits. But if it was suspected that he were killed, then maybe my wife and daughter receive the benefits that I've worked so hard to provide to them. And even though I'm walking away, I want them to be taken care of. I could see that being something in him orchestrating this. Or if he did all of those actions willingly himself, he was running from something that he was very afraid of.
Yeah. And he couldn't tell them about it.
And he was trying not to involve his wife and daughter. And one Reddit poster that I reviewed had a very interesting thought. They were from the general area, the Yakima area. I've probably said it wrong 10 times during the show, so I apologize to the people that live there. One person had posted that they lived there in the early 90s. And during that time, that area was under heavy development. They're building up the area, new houses coming in, new buildings coming in. And somebody had responded to that post with speculation. Was somebody trying to take him to that area to conceal the body forever?
Yeah, but you have 1,600 miles.
You got a lot of miles. You got a lot of miles to get there. But if you're in the van, and you got a gun to this guy's head with a guy sitting in the back controlling him, keeping him, holding him down, you could do that. He breaks free. He starts to flee. You turn around, you chase him and run him down with your vehicle. And then you're forced to just flee and hope that nobody sees you in the process. But look, I know it's a stretch, but everything's a stretch with this case. So I think their speculation is good as any that I've come up with. And we've had plenty of cases where the locals speculate that person who has never been seen again is buried under this parking garage that they were conveniently building at the time, or buried under
a house,
a house or a building, but or like a parking, like the parking garage that I'm talking about in the case that I'm referencing was the Springfield 3.
Yeah.
The killer, the abductor, knew that they were building this, but it wasn't necessarily somebody that was involved in the building of it. But you're not going to find somebody if they're buried under a parking garage. We know of cases that were later solved where a wife would go missing and had been missing for 17, 18 years, and she was simply buried underneath the shed and a concrete pad in the backyard, under a swimming pool in some cases.
Now,
So I think there's
want to hear my out there
yes, please,
possibility?
please.
So again, we have no confirmation sighting of him starting Friday. So we have Friday, Saturday, Sunday. He can go anywhere. But the question then becomes, what are these plane tickets? Are they actually connected to this David Lewis? Maybe it's because we've been talking a lot about the Long Island serial killer case. But what happens sometimes when the family goes out of town? Now, I want to say this, but start off with, there is no evidence whatsoever that David Glenn Lewis did any criminal activity, right?
Correct.
But with these weird movements and somebody spotting him at the airport and being so far away in a place that doesn't even make sense of how he even got there, it started reminding me a little bit of Israel Keys.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually did reach out to Josh Hallmark and say, hey, we're looking into this weird case, David Glenn Lewis. He's hit by a car 1,600 miles away from his house. And my question to him was, just these movements, if they are David Lewis's movements, maybe he's out there for nefarious reasons. But you'd think that if he had somebody in his control, that he kidnapped somebody, and they're the ones that escaped and hit him with the car, that they would come forward, right? That would make sense. But I don't think Josh understood the question, and it was probably my my bad email skills.
Your fault.
But his first reply was, I don't think Keys would be involved. Keys would have been 15 at the time. And I was like, no, not that Keys murdered him. Is the actions, is the movements, is that something similar that you see in Keys? Because this case is so effed up.
Right.
All possibilities are possible.
I pick up what you're putting down. So the thought here would be
his wife's away,
and the cat will play. The wife is away. The cat will play. He wants to get to this general area. Let's not say that he's trying to get to Washington or specifically where he was found, but he's on his way to somewhere. Maybe it is where he was found, to do something nefarious. And his way of covering it up is, well, all I have to do is get to and from the Los Angeles airport, take my plane ticket that would get me to Dallas with a layover in Amarillo, and I just go home. And by the way, there's a whole bunch of David Lewises out there from Texas, probably several in the Dallas area. They're going to have a hard time proving it was me up 1,600 miles away doing something.
Right. And
what that would be, we don't know.
Upper Northwest, serial killer capital of the world. So, I know that's a stretch, but the more I read about it, and when you read on Reddit because some people, there's so many questions you have to answer. When was he actually last seen? So how many days did it take for him to go missing? Mm-hmm. What actions are actually actions of David? Just like the VCR. Like, I agree with you. It makes no sense whatsoever. And then it's weird to me that if this was some big cover up or conspiracy, the last thing you would think is, well, we better have somebody at the house hit and record on the VCR. Mm-hmm. So it's very, very bizarre. We want to hear from you. Go to our website, truecrimegarage.com. Go to the blog. Whatever your thoughts. We tossed out some crazy thoughts here. We want to hear your thoughts. Go to the blog or on social media. Let us know what you think happened to David Glenn Lewis.
In our defense, Captain, I will say this. I think that everybody out there that's hearing this case for the first time, the longer you sit and stew with this, I think you will come up with some possibilities. We're not saying we believe what we think happened, but we're wondering if the details are so out there and so bizarre that it's a possibility that the solution is pretty out there and pretty bizarre at the same time. And so I think that the longer you sit and stew with this, the more far out there your speculation and possible conclusion theory will become as well. But when the captain says, share your thoughts and opinions on the blog, what we're really saying to all of you beautiful listeners, our good garage friends out there, help us out, because we need some good thoughts and theories on this case. And this is one that you can really sit and chew on for a long time. And regardless of whatever happened, what the truth is here, let's keep in mind he was a husband, he was a father, and he's referred to as a likable stand-up guy, professional, nice guy. I hope, and I know that his family are probably hurting for answers, wanting to know the mystery more than anybody out there. So I hope, as far away as it may be, that his wife, Karen, and his daughter eventually get the truth and learn what happened to David Glenn Lewis.
Yeah, and I'm not going to apologize for the speculation. I'm just going to say, you're welcome for having me introduce such an interesting case to you. Colonel, do you have any recommended reading for the beautiful listeners?
Yes, we have a very interesting read for everybody out there this week that seems very fitting because it is a missing persons case. So this week we are recommending 76 Minutes, My Search for Andrew, Alexander, and Tanner Skelton. Longtime listeners of this show will remember that we did do coverage on the missing Skelton brothers case a few years back. The three young Michigan brothers disappeared in 2010. A lot of people think and believe, for good reason, that their father has something to do with their disappearance. He was believed to be the last person to have seen them, and he has spent some time in prison since then, not for their disappearance, not for their murders, and we hope that that's not the case. We hope that what he has told police, that they are out there living, being held safe for safekeeping with another family or another community all of this time, but he's been locked up and he is getting out this year. This book, in my opinion, answers a lot of the questions that many people have about this case. You'll want to check out 76 Minutes, My Search for Andrew, Alexander, and Tanner Skelton by Lynn Thompson. You can find that great book, that great recommendation, and many more on our recommended page at truecrimegarage.com.
I want to thank you so much for listening. Thanks for telling your mother. Thanks for telling your brother. Until next week.
Be good, be kind, and don't litter.
Hey friends, Ted Danson here, and I want to let you know about my new podcast. It's called Where Everybody Knows Your Name, with me, Ted Danson, and Woody Harrelson, sometimes. Doing this podcast is a chance for me and my good bud Woody to reconnect after Cheers wrapped 30 years ago. Plus, we're introducing each other to the friends we've met since, like Jane Fonda, Conan O'Brien, Eric Andre, Mary Steenburgen, my wife, and Flea from the Red Hot Chili Peppers. And trust me, it's always a great hang when Woody's there. So why wait? Listen to Where Everybody Knows Your Name, wherever you get your podcasts.